Insidious is a word that I use a lot for this. It was like sneaky. I remember thinking like, this feels odd, but I feel good. Before I joined the group I was in, I was a kind of regular churchgoer. And slowly what happened is my involvement with him started to like dominate my identity. And there was lots of love bombing and financial exploitation through the manipulation of through the teachings. It was really kind of like a subtle rewiring of my identity. So one of the problems with a cult experience is it attacks you right at the core of who you are. You end up suppressing your real identity, and you end up with like a cult identity. So all the things that you're interested in, your hobbies, your dreams, your hopes, your relationships, what you believe, what you feel, your creativity, everything is kind of attacked. So when somebody leaves a group, they do experience this like deep destabilization of who they are, especially the ones who were born into it, where they didn't get a chance to develop their own individual identity before they joined.
My name's Joy Cranham. I'm a lecturer at the University of Bath. I'm particularly interested in preventative safeguarding against exploitative relationships, in particular cultic organisations. And that interest is based in my own experiences of being born and raised in a cultic group. The differences between someone who was recruited or groomed into a cult as an adult and someone who was born and raised in a cultic organisation, their childhoods have been different, so that developing self is a different dynamic. On leaving, the person who is born and raised then has to develop an identity of who they are away from the cult, whereas someone who has been groomed into a cult and then leaves, they do have an aspect of identity that they can return to.
I started thinking the leaders were amazing, started talking in the love bombing type, over the top positivity, started dressing like them and acting like them. But the control stepped up when I started to date someone in the group, and she'd been in it a much longer time. And that's when everything just switched almost overnight. I ended up like called into a meeting with my line manager, who was the worship pastor of the church. And he gave me this talk about submitting to leaders, these rules that I had to obey. Like if I went to visit her, I needed to stay with people from the church. I wasn't allowed to stay at her house. I wasn't allowed to kiss her. They were like in control, and they saw it like they owned her.
Often relationships, even marital or partnership relationships, are directed by the leader. People will have to ask permission for that. So relationships are often really controlled.
I got this message saying, it's over. But I was reading it and I thought, this isn't her words. This has come from somebody else. I am fully accountable to the leaders in this church, and you need to become accountable was one of the phrases in it. So it's basically saying like the leaders fully control me.
The things that we might look out for if someone is being coercively controlled is that their language will change. And so there are signs, but I find that those signs are too late.
But when I was living there, like, because they'd found out I'd sent her letters and I disobeyed her, they were like monitoring me all the time. And like I come home from work, like someone had been in my room and things had moved. And then like I'd hear them whispering about me in the house. So like I came home from work and I'm surrounded by that. And I go to work and I'm surrounded by it. And then I go to the church services and I'm surrounded by it. And they do like horrible things, like quite obviously talk about me in the servants, try and like humiliate me. Everyone in the room was saying, yes, amen. And I was sat there just like in this horrible, like toxic, deep shame, thinking I was a really bad person.
Oh, I would never do that. I would just get up and leave. Oh, what's wrong with these people? It's such a disrespectful and non-validating position, and we need to approach it with a lot more sensitivity.
What's really important in terms of helping someone heal is helping someone understand the psychology and how the cult operated as a machine to control them, and then they can start healing from the emotional aspect. I suppose what I'm proud of is the fact that I was able to achieve so much and do a master's, and whilst recovering from trauma, because it was like a horrendous mental battle. I suppose I'm quite proud of the fact that I carried on going. I'm getting a bit emotional here. I suppose I'm quite proud of the fact that I carried on going.
I would have liked my GP to have said, "Are you okay?" I would have liked my teachers to have been curious about why I was saying really strange things around not being able to play with other children. One of my intentions was to have a good life. I tried for years to crate up the adversity of my childhood and get on and have a good life. And I've cultivated a good life. You know, we're not alone. Experiences can be articulated and they can be heard and we can be seen.